those who wanted to see change. Speaking of change, my next guest, who's someone who wants to see change, she has been one of the leading voices here in Niagara on pushing back at how the digital world has taken over the lives of young people, and especially those in elementary and high school. And she created the Total Digital Reset as an on-demand course for families looking for instant guidance on how to reset their homes when it comes to the digital world. Lucy Colangelo is the founder of Shine On, and it's a great organization. It's a great company, and she gets to go into schools and talk about things like the Total Digital Reset. I had Lucy on Searching for Solutions a couple of weeks ago, and I have to say it was one of the most referenced interviews, to the point that I was at where I get my hair cut, and one of the women there said, there was a woman on your show, and I forget the woman's name, but she talked about sort of digital and computers and handhelds, and it had an impact, and I listened to it, and I didn't get her name, but it was amazing. And I said her name was Lucy Colangelo. Got to look her up because she can help a lot of families. So she's joining me now. We're gonna spend the next little while talking about what the feds, what the Liberal Party has voted at their most recent convention to push for legislation that would set the age of majority for Canadians to be able to use social media accounts at 16. And there's those pros and cons on this, but I wanted to bring someone on who actually is in the classrooms teaching about sort of the use of digital and what it means to people's health and well-being. So anyways, welcome to The Drive, Lucy.
Thank you, Walter. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I am excited to be here. And that's a great story. Someone asking about me. What?
Yeah. It's
I love it.
That's what's great about radio, local radio here in Niagara, is that we are able to bring on people who are experts in these kind of spaces, and then people are learning from it. And Lucy, you get to go into schools. You get to work with school boards. Before we get into the, is 16 the age? What are you hearing from kids when it comes to social media and the digital world?
Universally, one of the biggest things that comes up is, well, my friend has it.
Right.
Like it's like a FOMO thing, like fear of missing out, right? Like if your friend has it and then everybody else has it, is it okay that everyone just has it and we're not even looking at the harms and the consequences? So the kids struggle with their peer groups of like what is acceptable, allowed. There was the Ministry of Education handed down PPM 128, and that memorandum included banning cell phones in the classroom and banning social media on networks in schools. And that is supposed to help the kids all be, in the same environment together. Right? The conditions are not the same when we all grown-ups can't agree, right? So the kids they are saying they have a hard time putting their devices down and they need help. They are admitting that. They care about their lives, their education, their futures, and they care about how they struggle with focus and learning and all the things. So there's a huge acknowledgement from the youth to say that, yes, they see impacts, they see that this is detrimental, and they struggle with navigating it.
So there was a movement, and I don't know if all the school boards have done it yet, which is the removal of cell phones from the classroom. Is that your experience?
That's a ban. That's an actual ministry ban. That's absolutely implemented. And then what we're finding now is it's actually been written into like the policy, but it's enforcement. It's the principals, the teachers, and what position they choose to take. So it's as if it's optional, and every teacher, every classroom has a different kind of rule. I'm hearing from kids, well, when I'm done my work, I get to be on my phone. They say it's okay for me to pull my phone out. And so there's this inconsistent environment for the kids. And we got to get on the same page.
And that's a critical part of this, because there's a third leg to that stool, and that's parents. It can't just be the teachers and the administrators. It's in the government. It's got to be the parents who also follow these directives, because there was a recent court case in the United States that resonated very widely. It was widely covered around the world in terms of it was
Mm-hmm.
against Meta, which is the parent company of Facebook, and it was about the addictive nature of it, and it was a class case lawsuit that
Mm-hmm.
was trying that attempted to show that what Meta was doing was indeed maliciously, and I'll use the word maliciously. It may not be the court wording, but maliciously addictive for people. And you followed that case closely, and
Oh yeah.
your thoughts of the outcome on that one.
Well, I'm so happy to be having this conversation here locally in our community because it's impacting people globally, and that was the landmark lawsuit against Meta and YouTube, that they have an addictive design, harmful platform, all the things, right? So when we're talking about addictive design, like what they were found guilty of, it's important for people to understand and wrap their heads around. Just reflect on your use of technology and these apps, right? The infinite scroll, the constant notifications, the auto playing of videos that you didn't seek out. It acts like a digital casino, is what the language around that is. Then, further to that, they were found that they were aware that they cause harm, and there's emails that exist, there's evidence that exists that they know that there was mental health issues that were impacting young people. There was emails sent around about, okay, this is what's happening, there's no time limits, there's kids spending 18 hours on our platforms, and there was like, yeah, just keep going. It was in writing. So the evidence was there. That's what they were found guilty of, that they knew that there were harms and they failed to warn parents, and they put profits over safety. And so then the jury awarded this young girl $6 million, and that's to be split 70-30 between Meta and YouTube. And they both, of course, are appealing that verdict. And so it's the same thing. We need to understand it's like the tobacco playbook in the 80s and 90s. We don't cause harm. No, this isn't fair. This is how it's been. It's I love that all of this is in the public record now. The evidence is there. This is causing harm for our young people. And I think that this is really gaining traction right now because back in December, you might remember me mentioning when we talked earlier, Australia went with the ban. And these technologies, like it's possible to do this, to protect families, protect young people. And so it's this intersection. I think it's Australia banning it, and being successful and reporting great things. I mean, they gave their children their childhoods back, and we really need to understand that that developmental time is very important, very sensitive for developmental milestones. So the guilty verdict, and all these countries, like Australia is not the only one. We have France, we have Greece, Denmark, Indonesia, Austria, Brazil. They're all coming online. Everyone wants to be on the right side of this.
So
This is harming children.
we're going to get into that after the break, and I'm talking with Lucy Colangelo from Shine On, and she's also the creator of the Total Digital Reset. And we were talking about the impact of social media on youth in our community and in Canada, and looking at other examples in other parts of the world and what can be done. And so after we come back from the break, I want to get more into the Australian model, what Canada can do, what success looks like, and maybe some of the tactics, Lucy, that you teach in your program to help parents with their kids who have become addicted to social media, and just like the tobacco companies, they said back in the 80s, it's not addictive. What we have is not addictive, and then they were found to put addictive ingredients.
Cancer,
it is a playbook that's used by corporations far and wide when it comes to this kind of stuff. But we're going to come back with Lucy Colangelo right after we check in with traffic and weather. We'll be right back out there, and I'm talking with Lucy Colangelo from Shine On, and we're talking about sort of the impact of social media. And here I am juggling a whole bunch of stuff. I got my phone out. I'm trying to send some stuff over here. I'm trying to get some emails out. And, we become this culture of people that are somewhat addicted to what's in our hand and the technology in front of us. And Lucy, I want to get into the sort of the people side of it. And we talked about the government is considering a ban on social media for social media accounts for youth under 16. And
Mhm.
we talked before the break about mental health and what it does and what the research is saying. I want to talk about the flip
Mhm.
side. And you got some, there are critics out there who argue, this actually limits connection. It limits creativity, and digital literacy is here to stay. And it's if we're trying to keep kids away from it, it's going to do more harm than good. What's your take on some of the critics that oppose a ban like this?
Oh, I don't mean to like laugh at that comment, but our kids are not becoming tech savvy because they're scrolling and snapping each other. I'm sorry, but they're just passing the time. It's just not what's happening. So if you think that they're becoming technologically savvy, that's just wrong. They're not doing that. They're just in apps, just losing all their time and focus to like mindless behaviors.
So
Like you can talk to kids about what they're actually doing, and it's not a whole lot. Like there's nothing developmental happening there. I want to tell you a statistic around that because it's very appropriate at this moment. 93%. So 93% of kids' spare time is going to scrolling.
right.
It's not productive, it's not developmental, it's not challenging, they're not learning. No, that's not what's happening. If it was like that, I mean, that's what China's TikTok is like. Not ours. Ours is just dances and just continuous pointless,
It is
nothing, no
pointless.
educational stuff. No, I'm sorry, no. It's not, that's not digital literacy. That's not anything like that. I could make my case even further because there's scientific evidence, there's research now in MRI studies. I have it written down here, the cortical thickness of the brain's gray matter is impacted. So when they do comparison before and after brain scans of children's brains, they notice that certain parts of the brain, the thickness is thinner and it's underdeveloped. And if you show those brain scans to a doctor, not telling them the context, they'll view those scans as if that's a brain injury.
Wow. And
So
and
they're not being challenged.
right.
Their brain is not being developed. Sorry, no, it's not the case.
Right, and I'm glad you bring this up because again, this is an area where you're working with families and you're in the schools, talking to
Hmm.
kids about how to better utilize sort of the digital world that we're now a part of. But you know, the
Right.
the mums and dads who are doing their busyness during the day, and they don't understand the science behind brain development, and I think that's why as this government
Hmm.
goes down this road, it's
Yeah.
important that people listen to the science. We become somewhat of a culture where we're skeptical of science for a whole host of again social media reasons. But
Right.
you know, if a ban were to be introduced, what would be the biggest potential benefits, and what are, if you can, talk about some of the unintended consequences we should be thinking about?
Well, I only see an upside, honestly. It's like right now, um, like just liken it to driving a car. Uh, we have a licensing process for 16 and up to get to drive a vehicle. And before that, you're not ready. That's what society recognizes as you developmentally, your brain isn't ready to navigate and commandeer a vehicle safely. And I feel it's this, like we can just draw that parallel. And anyone listening right now, I ask you, please just reflect on, is your child able to pay attention? Do they have heightened anxiety? Do they have a low resilience for interacting with humans? And are they constantly depending on screens for regulation? Are they constantly dipping out of real life and checking out and just wanting to be entertained and scrolling? So we can do our own self diagnostic and we can say, okay, yeah, we want functional human beings. We want them to launch powerfully into life. That is what I am so passionate about when I come to schools, go to school boards, go to nonprofits. Like I'll go anywhere that they'll have me to have the conversation about what's actually happening. And then how the second part too is the how do we reset? And I'm all about reclaiming real life. In the real life is when we really develop those super important skills to function and be successful and launch powerfully. These young people today are struggling with all of it, and just talk to some kids that are just a further little bit along than your children's age. If you have an 8-year-old, talk to a 10, 12-year-old and see how, and talk to parents with a little bit older children and see, there are some downfalls here major when it comes to developing and having the confidence and start to like explore their future and what they really want for themselves. A lot of them are just checking out. They don't want to engage in finding a job, all kinds of impacts. There's all kinds of impacts.
So, and there is, like, in my circle, I see families with young children, and I watch how they utilize the handheld as a distraction while they're eating dinner, a distraction while mommy and daddy are having conversations with other people. And
Yeah.
I look
Yeah.
at it and I'm like, and then these kids, and I've bumped into it, they don't make eye contact with you. They
That's
avoid eye
right. That's
contact.
right. That's a huge one. The eye contact thing is actually showing up in job interviews post college and university. Um, they can't make on Zoom calls even make eye contact with their boss or team people at a working on a project or something like that. They're not there with those like human skills, right? And so like I want to make sure I say this. Like, this is not about shame, blame, or guilt. This is a technology that came and conquered. It evolved rapidly. There are AIs and algorithms in play here that are so sophisticated, it would blow your mind, really, truly. And don't take it personally and don't be upset. And you're not being blamed here. These technology giants are as successful and powerful as they are because of the level of sophistication that they've embraced in this world. So for us to be having a conversation about protecting our young people, I mean, it's a no-brainer. Sorry, it just is. We need to protect our kids, and we need to do better for ourselves also about, how this came and how it infused and folded itself into our culture and our day-to-day living and what goes on. I mean, I know that we're wrapping up here at the end of our time, but I want to leave people with some ideas,
Right.
like
That's what I was going to ask.
inside of these apps, like in these apps, like, and I'm talking about like anything that your kids could be doing inside of Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, X, YouTube, and even Discord, any of those softwares with the gaming and those platforms. Be vigilant, mindful. Can strangers reach out to your children? Do these things have time limits? Please take the phones out of the bedrooms. Give
Right.
your child a sanctuary for sleep and recuperation and just unplugging. Vigilance on extreme content. One of the latest extreme content pieces that I'm following is like kids very young getting hooked on gambling apps. So no social media until 16. Absolutely, they can't handle it, and they shouldn't have to. They should have a childhood. And then the last one I'll leave you with, maybe we can have another episode, another meetup, and talk about is the emergence of AI companions
Right.
and
That's another one.
children becoming more comfortable having what's called synthetic relationships over real human ones. And so those are the things that I'm advocating for when I talk to families, to empower them to understand. And everybody just, they understand when I frame it out. So I feel blessed that I get to share this kind of message and empower families and young people to really reclaim real life and their humanity.
Well, you touched on, Lucy, the speed at which technology is moving. I don't think society was ready or is ready or will ever be ready for the speed now that technology changes. And I think social media, as proven by the case in the United States, they
Mm-hmm.
found that they can addict people to their platform. They did it because it's all about money, and it's time for governments to take a stand. Time for governments to push the digital piece out of the reach, if you will, of young people because of everything you touched
Mm-hmm.
on. So if people want to get a hold of you, Lucy, I got to let you go in 30 seconds. How do they get a hold
Yeah.
of you to harness some of the teachings that you've learned?
Well, I'm here for everyone. I have a website. It's called shineonmethod.com. And on there, families can book in for a free 15-minute discovery call with me. Anything goes. We can talk about anything. I'm here to support. And then I have my programs to help further that process along. But I'm here for Niagara. I truly love my community, and I hope to help in any way I can. So shineonmethod.com.
Well done, Lucy Colangelo. I know we'll have you on again, and keep up the great work for helping both the young people in our community, but their families as well, navigating this world of digital, whatever you want to call it. I don't have a word.
Functioning, right?
Digital
Thank
functioning.
you so much. Thank you for having me. Thanks for having me.
All right, Lucy, take care. This is The Drive on 610 CKTB. I'm a little over. We got to check in with news, and then we'll be back with Mike Lethby from RAF. So we're going to continue that conversation about youth in our community. Take care, and we'll be right back.